The Week 16 that was in the NFL, we've got a lot of takeaways from last weekend's football. We've got Christmas football games coming up quick as well for Week 17, and I hope everyone's having a happy holiday. What's going on in the NFL right now as we hit Christmas on today's Peacock and Williamson?
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look at the NFL on the field and in the front office with elite breakdowns to next-level analysis and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks everybody for making this your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Love and appreciate all of our everydayers out there, and welcome to all the new listeners to Peacock and Williamson. We're here for you daily through the rest of the season, into the postseason, and of course the off season as we do 5 days a week. And you should subscribe. So please hit that subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you are listening to this podcast. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code, all lowercase, LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Let's start all the way back. It seems like an age ago now with the Saturday football games because of our holiday schedules. And I'm playing a road game here, and I will for the rest of the week. We just saw Monday Night Football last night as we sit here Tuesday morning to finish up Week 16 as the Packers blanked the Saints. But I want to go back to Saturday's games because I was fascinated by how easily it seemed to me, Matt, that the Baltimore Ravens defeated the Pittsburgh Steelers. This wasn't your average, 3-point game in the AFC North and slug it out. The Ravens put some numbers up on the Steelers as far as their offensive output in this game, and the Steelers showed somewhat of some struggles. And, Derrick Henry going for 152 yards, was it? 24 carries. And obviously you're close to this game. You cover the Steelers. Talk to me about where the Steelers are and what you saw from the Baltimore Ravens on Saturday.
Yeah, and real quick, you mentioned the holiday schedule, and all four of these teams have played Sunday or Saturday are now going to play on Christmas. It's in kind of a crisscross situation. But yesterday, I just want to tell people, was one of my weirdest days of my career. I mean, it really was. I think I was on the air total about 9 hours on Monday. And BP, I did 2 Steeler review shows of this game, and I did 2 Steeler preview shows of the next game on the same day.
The Saturday to Wednesday NFL flip-flop doesn't happen very often. That does probably feel a little strange, and it's already a weird week with Christmas and the holiday and everything and travel. And so, yeah, an interesting week for Williamson for sure. I hope you're settled in for the holiday with the Williamson family, though.
Yeah, at least I don't have to go to the game, and we're going to have people here. I can do the pregame show from here. I can do a postgame podcast from here. So
nice.
That's not bad. I mean, all my buddies have to go to the game. At least they're happy they don't have to travel to Kansas City. I mean, that's no fun for the holidays. But you're right. I mean, the Ravens, first, I really want to give the Ravens credit. Yeah, I mean, first off, the Texans and Ravens had Week 13 buys. And on this show last week, I said, boy, I think both these teams are really going to figure it out. This comes at the right time. Well, I think I was half right. And I think the Ravens are a really good football team. And after studying them and then watching this, side note, I put a couple bucks on them to win the whole thing. The odds are still pretty good. I think that this is a real high-quality football team. The defense is not allowing big plays like it used to, and they are really figuring things out. And I don't really see an answer for their offense. The Steelers really keyed on taking away Lamar as a runner. And then, as a result, Henry had these huge lanes. And frankly, I think, I'm not making excuses, but the Steelers were on the field for like 40 minutes against the Eagles last week. And then a short week for this one against a really physical team, this murderer's row. They get the Chiefs next. That their defense is just pretty beat up, and there was a couple starters out for this game, and it showed. Also, Pickens was out, and the offense was pretty inept without him for the second straight week against a high-quality opponent. And Wilson made 2 key mistakes. I mean, he basically fumbled away some kind of points and then threw a pick six, and had to kind of try too hard and just couldn't manage the game in a game like this without Pickens, and it cost them. And the Ravens are really good. Steelers are reeling right now. If they can beat the Chiefs, they'll be back on track. But you play at the Eagles, at the Ravens, home, and Chiefs in 11 days, and not easy.
That is not easy at all. And it puts it into context, too, with that 34-17 score. Somewhere between 10 and 14 points were given away by Russell Wilson, as you just mentioned, and the Steelers. Yep. And that makes that game a lot closer. But, I mean, that is just tough to stop Lamar. And then you got Derrick Henry coming down. And by the way, I think I shorted him 10 yards, 162 yards, not 152 yards rushing.
Right.
He had a 44-yarder. Then you look at the Steelers and their leading receivers, Calvin Austin. I like Calvin Austin as a player, but you can't run your offense through him too, especially against a team like the Baltimore Ravens. So tough spot for the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. And I would imagine they don't get Pickens back in 4 days' time, right?
No, I don't know if these guys could have played the last two, but all systems go. Everyone's playing on Christmas.
Okay.
Pickens, Ogunjobi, Elliott, all these guys except for Porter, who got hurt in this game. So
interesting.
They're all ready to roll.
It's kind of one or the other, where if they played, they might not be able to come back for Christmas. So they just made sure that they gave them the proper rest instead of the short rest and give them the Wednesday game. Okay.
And I guess the field was a little sloppy for bad hamstrings too. I think that had something to do with it too in Baltimore.
You said you said that you were half right as far as teams coming back after the bye and figuring things out down the stretch. How do we feel about the Houston Texans? It was the Chiefs that improved to 14-1, defeating the Texans 27-19 Saturday.
The Chiefs are remarkable. I mean, it's been a really short week for Steelers Chiefs prep for me, but they've won 16 straight one-score games. 16 straight. Like the analytic people are like rolling over in their grave. Like you're supposed to be 500 in one-score games. You're always going to regress to the mean. They won 16 straight. And I think that their pass catchers are coming around nicely. Worthy's starting to hit his stride. You get Marquise Brown back. Hopkins can be a role player. Kelsey can be a role player. But they're remarkably efficient on third down and success rate and things that aren't exciting. But if it's 3rd and 5, the Chiefs get 6 every time. They don't get 8, they don't get 9, they get 6. I mean, it's just over and over and over. And the third down stuff, we did kind of a deep dive on the show today, previewing the game. This might be the best quarterback season that anyone's had in the history of the game on third downs alone. Mahomes, he's not in the MVP conversation, but if you convert like every third down, maybe you should be.
They do it so often, and it's not even this year that the Chiefs. This is what they do, and it's clear that it's a feature and it's something that they're good at doing, and somehow they're just different than everybody else as far as what you would expect them to be doing and what the analytics and what the expectations would be, because there's a lot of versus expectation stats out there. You almost got to throw those out the window because they're different.
You really do.
Expectation than other teams are in the NFL, and you hate the roughing penalty that shouldn't happen because it just gives everybody who wants to discredit the Chiefs that extra. Okay, well, it's a lot easier to play against however many 17 guys because the refs are all on their side than it is to play against 12 Chiefs, and so that's unfortunate too because I think they did miss some calls, and I think they make their
and
own
they're under a microscope for that now too.
Yeah, and
anything goes their way, and
right. And maybe I'm guilty of that, but it was like, come on, there was a player, there's a roughing call. It's like you just can't make that call. Come on.
No, I hear you. Couple things with the Texans, not to kind of Grinch this thing up, but when Tank Dell got hurt, I mean, all momentum and wind came out of the sails. I mean, you could see Stroud almost crying, highly emotional. I guess they're like best buds. And it was almost a year ago that he had a massive season-ending injury. And then he had this one. He got shot in between. I mean, like, talk about it.
Forgot about that, too.
Yeah, right.
Jeez.
Like, oh, man, holds on for the touchdown, but obviously his season's over. And he was just starting to round into form and looking like the Tank Dell that, we thought he could be. And then they're forced to pick up Deontay Johnson yesterday, which I don't think will do him much good. But their O-line and offensive problems aren't getting fixed at all. I mean, their protection schemes are really bad. They're asking a lot out of Stroud. I was listening to a deep dive that Oliver Connolly did about the Texans scheme, and it's pretty embarrassing, really. And he pointed out they have 4 offensive line coaches. Well, they should have 4 new ones. I mean, it's bad.
Or maybe only 3.
Or only 1. Right. One good one.
Yeah. You get the feeling that things might get more difficult for the Chiefs, in the postseason. Can they keep with the Houdini Act in January? Can they keep that up? But it feels like the Texans might not last long in the playoffs. Yeah. They're just not quite there, and you hate to see the Tank Dell injury again. That is really brutal. Unfortunate.
So I've kind of been soothing my Steeler brethren, that I don't think the 5 seed for Baltimore or Pittsburgh is all that terrible to go to Houston.
No, not at all. That's not the worst.
They're right for the
draw in the world. Right.
Yeah. If you don't win the division, that's not so bad.
It's the round after that you have to worry about because you'll still be on the road. Probably.
Right.
Michael Penix made his debut for the Atlanta Falcons. Jalen Hurt got banged up in a loss to Washington, and the Vikes and the Lions, both winners and keeping pace with each other at the top of the NFC with the Eagles loss. All that and more coming up next. This episode brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel because right now new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets. Yep, they're up in those bonus bets for you. $250 in bonus bets to finish off the regular season, get you into the playoffs. And all you got to do is win your first $5 bet at FanDuel. And there's so many ways for you to play at FanDuel and pick up a W of your own. Betting on which players will score a touchdown. How many points will each team score? It's thrilling. Live in-game betting. NBA, NHL, every sport imaginable. You can find that action as well. NFL draft props, if that's where your mind is heading for some teams that their season isn't headed toward the playoffs. So all you got to do is visit FanDuel.com and join today or download the app. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Let's go to Atlanta, where the Falcons beat up on the New York Giants, and it wasn't really because of, Michael Penix lighting up the scoreboard or anything like that. 34-7 was the final score. The Giants offense putting up points for the Falcons in that game too. Obviously, this was a decent team, a good team, and a team that's in a really good spot now with the Falcons with their rookie quarterback because they jump up to 8-7, and with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers loss that we'll talk about, they got that tiebreaker. So looking good there, and obviously the Giants are the worst team in football. And I got to point out one thing that was somewhat comical, probably infuriating for Giants fans, though. Comical if you're not a Giants fan, and for sure not comical, Matt, if you are Giants ownership, because during the broadcast of this game, they flashed a card on the screen that talked about how bad the Giants have been this year. And since 1966, it's the worst. It's the last time the Giants had the worst outright record in the NFL, which they have currently. And there's a good chance they might end the season with the worst record in the league. Hasn't happened since 1966. They haven't been winless at home since 1974, which they are currently.
Wow.
They haven't held the #1 pick in the NFL draft since 1965. And
they didn't trade up for Eli. Yeah.
Yeah. And what's even more shocking, I think, because this is hard to do, they've never been winless versus the division. And it feels like every 10 years or so, you're going to either sweep the division or get swept by the division and have a down year.
6 games, right? Yeah.
And that's pretty impressive that the Giants have never been winless versus the division. But the insult to injury of this is they're showing this on the screen during the game. And what do they do when the card leaves the screen? They flash to ownership, and John Mara's in the owner's booth. And he is absolutely furious. He doesn't like seeing that on the screen, but he really hates that the next thing he sees, because you know how there's a delay, and he doesn't realize that the camera's already on him, and he's looking at the screen, and he turns around and he's like talking to somebody, and he's mad. And so you get the feeling heads have to roll after something like that, and embarrassment on TV, even though I don't think the entire nation was watching that game.
So maybe last night's Saint performance is as bad as the Giants are now, but you're right. I mean, they're clearly earned the first overall pick, to say the least. I used to think, maybe you should keep Dayball. He seems like a good offensive mind. This is too bad, though. I mean, this is just non-competitive football for months on end. So I think wholesale changes need to be made. Ownership needs to evaluate who sweeps the floors, the parking situation, everything. I mean, the whole organization. But I thought Penix was good. I mean, it made me think, boy, this guy makes the Falcons so much more watchable. I didn't want them in the playoffs. Now I do. I want to see as much of him as I possibly could. This was an easy first test for him. Nice. But I also thought probably should have put him in 2 or 3 weeks ago. I mean, by the looks of things. Bijan's awesome, and Pitts had a goofy turnover. But other than that, the Falcons are playing pretty well. Falcons D has been a lot better lately, too.
Yeah, and I think Penix looked a little bit better than the box score, because the box score wasn't great. Yeah. 202 yards passing, no touchdowns, had an interception. They leaned on Bijan heavily, which, you talked about before the game is going to be a nice player for your fantasy leagues, 94 yards rushing, but the 2 touchdowns really helped those folks that are heading towards their fantasy championships this year. And obviously they didn't need a lot of fireworks from their quarterback or anybody on offense. In fact, their defense could have just won the game if they didn't have an offense at all against the New York Giants. That's how bad the Giants were in this game. So, but a great spot for the Atlanta Falcons to be, as I mentioned, because, and I'll be really interested to see when, they step up in competition for Michael Penix and how he looks down the stretch, because they need to win. They need to win out. Really, the Falcons do, because they need to make sure that they are tied with those Tampa Bay Buccaneers who lost to the Cowboys 26-24 Sunday night, Matt. And so now the Falcons and Bucs are tied again at 8-7.
Tough loss. I mean, I was really behind the Bucs. I thought they've had a very successful year. This is a tough one. But I give the Cowboys credit, too. Unlike their counterparts in the East, the Giants, I would bring back the whole staff. I mean, they're playing hard. They're a difficult team to play against. They've found a run game. I think we have to realize that there's a large portion of the season they were without Dak and or Micah Parsons. I mean, how many teams could withstand that and still be competitive? So I think that there's good stuff going on in Dallas. I give CeeDee Lamb credit. It looks like his shoulder's about to fall off, and he's still out there balling. So, right. I mean, so these teams don't have to cash it in just because they get eliminated.
And you see some teams that, their coaching staff looks like they are earning a pink slip, and Mike McCarthy's earning.
I don't think.
Right. He's earning his return, and it's almost like not only because where the Cowboys are right now, it's not so much earning your return. It's almost like earning an extension, right? Mm-hmm. I feel like you have to either get extended or get a new coach when you are where they are. And the fact that they're that competitive without Parsons, without Dak Prescott, that is impressive against a team that's been playing good ball and fighting for a playoff spot when you're not. So not quitting, and that's all. I think that's all very positive for the Cowboys.
Yeah, they did a good job taking Evans away. They played well.
Speaking of teams that might be looking for a new coaching staff, let's go to real quick the Jaguars and the Raiders, because we talked about how the New York Giants would stand alone now with the number 1 pick in the NFL draft because the stupid Raiders went and won a game, Matt. So they won 19-14 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Both those teams now 3-12, and we're going to be looking at strength of schedule tiebreakers for a lot of these 3-win teams when we talk about draft order here in a couple weeks.
Yeah, Vegas goes all the way to 6 as it currently stands, so that's not exactly where you need to be in a not very strong top of the draft to get your quarterback. So this was one of the worst games going. I didn't spend a ton of time watching it, but I do think that, Brian Thomas is really impressive. Brock Bowers is really impressive. There's a couple things to build around here, but there's going to be wholesale changes with both these organizations. I'd much rather have the Jags job, though, than the Raiders.
Especially if they're picking 6 and not 1, even though I don't know if Sugar Sanders or Cam Ward is a franchise savior or anything like that either. But
right.
Just more assets is what you want if you are the Raiders right now. And Antonio Pierce's quote after the game, I think, was pretty telling, because he said, "Well, this is a lot better than talking about another loss." It's just like, all right, sure, but the fact that it's like you're just resigned to like all these losses, I don't know. It
This
came
is a
off as
miserable
weird,
existence.
a weird quote to me. He felt like he was kind of done. Like it might be one of those jobs where you're like, I kind of hope I get fired because this is just
yeah. It's been enough. Yeah, all right. I'll go back to being a defense coordinator or linebackers coach or something.
All right, some more notes on Week 16. That was there was one team that looked like they might have just completely quit. With all the bad football teams we talked about, I think there's one that maybe was even worse than the Saints potentially, Matt. And the Vikings and Lions getting very interesting atop the AFC or the NFC and the NFC North next. Today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks, and Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. If you love watching football, you love watching the game, you're going to love Prize Picks. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy, whether it's football or basketball or any of your favorite sports. Prize Picks makes your holidays bigger and brighter too, because you can now win up to 1,000 times your money on Prize Picks. Plus, this holiday season, they're giving away $30+ million in rewards during Pixmas, and offering 2 free picks in December. And so December's almost over. So get those 2 free picks in at Prize Picks. And when your picks hit, Prize Picks makes it easy to cash out. You can get your money in as fast as 15 minutes. So go download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 instantly when you play your first $5 at Prize Picks. Run your game. And this episode is brought to you by Rocket Money. And Rocket Money is the place to go to if you want to save money. And you might be shocked how many subscriptions you have. And you might be even more shocked to find out that you've got double subscriptions. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about that you were paying for twice? It happens. It happens to a lot of people. And Rocket Money makes it so easy to track all those subscriptions down, see what you need, see what you don't need. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscription. Monitor your spending, helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings together all of this in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions alone, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. So go cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon, rocketmoney.com/lockedon. So I want to highlight another bad football team. And the good news for those fans of bad football teams around the NFL, Matt, is that on our Christmas Day episode tomorrow, it will be we're going to be putting some presents under the Christmas tree for those teams that have been eliminated from playoff contention. And there, one really nice gift that might make their 2025, their start to 2025, a little bit brighter. And for the Tennessee Titans, they might need a will, because they gave up. I want to get the number right. I think they gave up a total of 300 yards on the ground. 200 of those going to Jonathan Taylor. And it's the first time in Titans history that they've allowed 300 rushing yards in a game. The last time the org did it, it wasn't the Tennessee Titans at that point. It was 1965. October 24th, 1965 is the last time this organization, going back to another team name, another city, gave up 300+ yards on the ground. It looked like a team that had kind of quit, because that was the one thing they were good at before, Matt.
They're pretty miserable, and they're sort of in like quarterback no man's land as well. Like, I don't know what to do with this team, to be honest with you.
Yeah, Mason Rudolph was supposed to make them more competitive, and
right.
He threw the ball. He threw 3 interceptions in this game too. So that that wasn't working. It was all bad for the Titans right now. So kind of crumbling down the stretch, and they're a 3-win team that doesn't really need to win any more games. But you start to question what's going on there with the new coaching staff, because you don't like to see a team what looked like they kind of quit out there.
I will say they did come back and scored some points in the second half, and kind of did some little things, but Jonathan Taylor just running all over you. I mean, you talk about fantasy winners,
Yeah.
I mean, you didn't want Jonathan Taylor on the other team in fantasy this week, but I think they have some really tough questions in Tennessee, starting with ownership of, do you bring these guys back? Boy, we probably made an error pushing in our chips on a lot of veteran free agents last year, and now we don't have a quarterback, and little thing, but I even tweeted it out last night. Excuse me, gave away Malik Willis for nothing. I'm not saying he's ever going to be good, but I'd at least throw him in the mix right now.
Malik Willis has looked really good when he comes into the Packers, and he got some snaps on Monday Night Football. I don't know if you want to talk about any of the plays from Monday Night Football, because that was just a laugher early and late.
First shutout of the year.
First shutout of the year. I was surprised to see that. Yeah, nobody had not mustered at least a field goal in a game this year, except for now the New Orleans Saints in Week 16, 34-0 Packers over the Saints.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Saints and Giants could play a million times, and I'd watch it never, and it would be the worst game ever. They're so terrible right now.
Really quick note on the NFC West, because the Rams defeated the Jets, and the Rams are pretty hot right now, and it took them a little bit. They were down in this game for a little bit, and they ended up winning an ugly score, 19-9, and that was kind of what the game looked like there. 9-6 Rams now, and with the loss of the Seahawks, the Rams are in awesome shape to go win that division. And they've got the tiebreaker. They're in great space right now, but the Seahawks are not at 8-7 after losing 27-24 to the Minnesota Vikings, and the Vikings keeping pace at 13-2 after the Lions defeated the Bears 34-17, which was as expected, but a little disrespect with the fake fumble-rooski play with I don't know why you don't save that to the playoffs. Did you really need to do that to the Bears, who you're beating the heck out of anyway, for the Detroit Lions? So I kind of just mixed a whole bunch of games up together in the North and in the West and the NFC. But my big takeaways are disrespectful from Ben Johnson to potentially his future employer.
Might be his new employer, right? Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that was the statement he wanted to make there.
I didn't think of that till now. Yeah,
easy win for the Lions. A little bit more difficult win for the Vikings, but both at 13-2 now. This is gonna be fun going down the stretch.
Yeah, absolutely. NFC is absolutely fun. The Rams game wasn't real pretty, but they got the win. That's what they needed. They're in the driver's seat, as you mentioned. The Vikings are very real. I believe in them more and more. Justin Jefferson was outstanding in this game, as usual, but Darnold was quite good as well. And you mentioned it. I mean, the Lions kind of remind me a little bit of Ring Around the Rosie Chiefs. Let's just do fun plays. We'll draw them up in the dirt. Let the players do them, and we'll just win no matter what, But Vikings are nipping at their heels, though.
They are. The Vikings will not go away, and they're playing really good football and defeat the Seahawks. The Seahawks season could be getting closer to ending. The 49ers officially eliminated. They lost to the Dolphins 29-17, and so that puts a wrap on the 49ers 2024 campaign, which was just awful. But, sort of a lot of people want to blame injuries with the 49ers woes this year, but it's not like the Lions haven't gone through a bunch of injuries, and they're rising above it. And so good on the Lions. Niners go back to the drawing board this year. And the last game I really want to highlight here, and we'll probably skip a few, we'll see what's going on with
Super
Josh
quick
Allen.
Note, because you mentioned Miami. We already talked about Indy. But those two and Cincy all winning makes the AFC a little more fun than I thought it was going to be. I mean, at least the Colts, Dolphins, and Bengals are still alive and kicking and have some juice to them,
Yeah, and allowed the 49ers to sneak on up to the 11th pick in the NFL draft as of today.
Wow.
The Niners at 6-9 now, getting close to the top 10. I don't think they're going to sniff the top 10, though, because then you got teams like the Saints and stuff in front of them. So it's about as low as the Niners can get from draft picks. But, yeah, there's a lot of teams in that 6-7 win range that the Niners leapfrog in draft order because of their wins. So, I like those teams being competitive down the stretch, but, hurting their draft stock for the teams that don't get into the playoffs there. The Washington Commanders, though, with a big win over the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, Jalen Hurts wasn't out there because he got hurt early, concussed, and 36-33 win for the Commanders. 22 fourth quarter points as the Commanders come roaring back after they were down because of the Eagles' 21 first quarter points. Eagles fall to 12-3, which really hurts them in that bid for the 1 seed. They're still fine with winning the division there in the NFC East, but the Commanders, get that 10th win and kind of thwart any attempt for teams like the Seahawks or other teams in the NFC try to sneak into that wild card spot.
Yeah, I still think the Eagles might be the best team in the league, though. I mean, they're going to not get a bye, and that's a bummer. They probably win this game. I'm sure they do if Hurts stays healthy, but that's not how it went.
Mm-hmm.
Barkley had another big, huge game and could potentially set the record. But I found it kind of interesting. I mean, my man Kenny Pickett comes in, and every target goes to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. I mean, Kenneth Gainwell had one catch on the day, and I think Barkley had a target. Like, Kenny, throw it to these two. Don't screw it up.
Yeah.
And still wasn't quite enough. But Jaden Daniels, I mean, the poise and 5 touchdowns, and he's had some signature wins already in his career. He's running away with Rookie of the Year again. You got to be super excited about this dude.
We'll talk about this more. I want to put a pin in it real quick, but man, it sure seems like when you're scouting quarterbacks in the NFL draft, an older quarterback that's played a lot of football it should be in the pros, not the cons. Because I think in a lot of prospects, It's like, well, this is an older prospect, and that makes sense at some positions. But at quarterback, especially with the NIL money, like, go back to school, guys, because these guys are developing a lot easier when they've played 4 or 5 years as a starter in college football.
I don't think you and I talked about this. I've been on so many shows lately, but Mel Kiper's First Draft podcast on ESPN, he's been saying that now for weeks, that he said, and I'm sure people in the league are telling him too, like he said, if you're a quarterback, stay as long as you can, no matter, unless you're guaranteed the first pick in the draft or, top couple, stay as long as you can. Like Ewers with Texas, I guess, is going to get replaced by Arch Manning. Transfer to Rutgers or Syracuse or whatever, just keep staying in school,
Yeah, because he hasn't been that good either, Quinn Ewers.
He's not quite good enough, and maybe he's the next Bo Nix or, at a new school. And they're going to get paid well. You're a big man on campus. Why leave?
I'm with you, man. Bills beat the Patriots 24-21. Really, the big takeaway for me here is the Josh Allen injury. It's not a devastating injury. He's fine. It's like a hand, arm injury. He's played through it. But, you don't want to be banged up going into the playoffs. So if the Bills have an opportunity here to rest him potentially and not get the 1 seed, but know that they're pretty, locked into, say, the 2 seed in the AFC, I think you got to sit him. Make sure he's 100% for that playoff run for the Buffalo Bills.
I would think if Kansas City wins on Christmas, then you really start to consider that stuff. You do have the head-to-head, but you'd need some things to go your way. They were kind of underwhelming, though. And my 3 dynasty leagues that I was rolling along with Josh Allen all got eliminated because he only got me like 12 points. That was my guy.
I mean, he was carrying most fantasy teams.
He was the reason I was there, right?
Yeah. And by the way, with what Josh Allen did in this game and with what Lamar Jackson did this week, maybe gets that MVP race a little bit more interesting, a little closer there.
Let me throw one super short thing at you here.
Yeah.
What if the Bengals get in? I might vote for, if they get in, I might vote for Burrow.
I'm totally down with that. Totally down with that.
But you have to get in, and they need a lot of help. I don't think they will. But if they can get into the playoffs with that defense, he's probably been the best quarterback in the league.
His stats are phenomenal. He's carrying that football team. They're still only 7-8 after the 24-6 win over the DTR-led Cleveland Browns. I don't think there's much to say about that game, but 3 more touchdown passes from Joe Burrow in that game.
He's been on fire. And DTR got hurt in that one, too. He might go back to Winston. Who knows?
Last one, Cards knocked out of things as well. 36-30 loss at the Carolina Panthers. Panthers up to 4 wins this year.
Panthers are one of the best stories of the year. I mean, they were the laughing stock up until Halloween or something like that, well into the season. If we're power ranking how you're playing right now, they would be 20th for me. I mean, they would not be bottom 6 or 7.
Right. Yeah. If we're just laughing at teams that are playing poorly and are a disgrace to their fan bases, you're pointing at New York, you're pointing at Las Vegas, you're pointing at Jacksonville, all before you point at Carolina. So good on them for climbing out of the cellar. Right. Yeah. New Orleans is another one. Yeah.
Yeah. Carolina would wipe the floor with the Saints right now.
All right. So for those teams that the season didn't go great, what is the gift we would put under the tree on our Christmas episode tomorrow? What gift would you put under the tree for those teams? And we're going to preview those Christmas games as well. Talk to you then right here. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcasts. Peacock and Williamson.